Another light heavyweight bout, Tyson Pedro sitting at minus 220. And in steps Modestas Bukauskas in his second stint in the UFC, coming in on short notice, sitting at plus 220. Over under set at 1.5 rounds. Over minus 128. Under plus 128. What are you thinking on this one?
Yeah, I mean, Tyson Pedro, obviously, he hasn't fought the best guys lately at all. But Bukauskas, 3 straight losses in his last UFC stint. Jimmy Crute, Michael Olajaychuk, and Khalil Roundtree. And really, all 3 of those guys are, dangerous in their own ways. So those fights, you take a loss there. Those guys what I'm trying to say is those guys do rack up a lot of wins and knockouts. So, and then he went to Cage Warriors and rattled off 2 wins, and he's back. I just don't know if he's at the UFC level. I mean, we've kind of seen it before. He had that 1 win in the UFC, which was Andreas Michailidis' retirement fight. Is that what I'm reading?
Yeah, so, I think got stopped, or he got stopped between rounds.
Yeah, so I mean, he hasn't really shown us much besides that in the UFC or at the UFC level. And Tyson Pedro, who'd he beat? Harry Hunsucker. He's only 9-3, so he doesn't have like a load of experience or anything at this level either. But I just think his skills are sharper. If he gets the fight, if he can get on top of you, he can land some vicious ground and pound. He's obviously powerful. His kicks are good. We've seen him hurt Ike Villanueva by kicks, and just kind of laid the pressure on him with punches and got him out of there. He did lose to Shogun Rua in 2018, and Shogun, obviously towards the end of his career, hasn't been, the old Shogun. But I just think there's going to be a level difference here. Tyson Pedro, better all-around fighter, has more wins in the UFC. I've seen a lot more out of Tyson Pedro than I like. So it's going to be my pick. I don't necessarily know if I can lay the money on him at minus 220. Maybe a parlay piece for me here. I don't necessarily like the over-under 1.5 either. So I think if I'm going to go with anything, Tyson Pedro is the pick. Minus 220 might be something I put in a small parlay. But other than that, I'm not going to go heavy on either side here.
Yeah, I like Tyson Pedro in this one. If you look at what he came into the UFC as, he came in kind of just starching guys. I mean, submitted Khalil Roundtree, knocked out Paul Craig, decision loss to Lir Latifi, doesn't age too well. Then a Kimura win against Safarov, lost to OSP, and then he got injured in that Shogun Rua fight, which he lost in the 3rd round, and then was off for almost, over 3.5 years. So comes back. This is obviously a guy that they want to build up in Tyson Pedro, because they gave him 2 of the worst light heavyweights that the UFC has probably seen in not even recent memory, but just overall. They give him Ike Villanueva. And if you get Ike Villanueva, the UFC obviously wants to do something with you. He knocks him out with leg kicks and didn't have to land too many.
No.
And then they give him Harry Hunsucker on a pay-per-view. So they're obviously trying to, put him on some kind of pedestal, or like some kind of show stage where people can see him. He's pretty talented dude. He was a talented dude until that injury, kind of easing him back into it here. So they had him paired up against this Min Yang Zhang, and then Zhang withdrew, and then they brought back Modestas Bukauskas for his second stint in the UFC. As you said, the guys he lost to in the UFC, nothing to hang your head about, but he lost to him pretty. He had split decision loss to Michal Olajaychuk. He was pretty young in his UFC career there, but got starched by Jimmy Crute, and that side kick to the knee by Khalil Roundtree, that oblique kick that just people started to say that oblique kick shouldn't be legal because of that fight. So he took that one pretty bad. Goes into Cage Warriors, gets a win against Lee Chadwick. Nothing really to ride home about there. Lee Chadwick is 28-17 in his pro career. Knocks out Chuck Campbell in the 4th round. of that Cage Warriors fight. I watched that one. Nothing to write home about there. Chuck Campbell's 5-2 in his pro career.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Cage Warriors is a pretty good promotion, but those fights just really not impressive at all.
Yeah.
It just seems like they needed a guy to fill in here.
And the more you say that, the more you say that, it kind of makes me think too. He's in his home country. They've built him up with fights in the past. Maybe they're doing it again, try to get him a win. I think Tyson Pedro has a lot of marketability, especially from his country. Maybe they are just bringing in this guy for his second stint in the UFC to take this loss, make Tyson Pedro look really, really good. The more I think on it, Tyson Pedro might be the play here. Maybe the UFC is just trying to build him up one more time. I don't know.
Or maybe I'm just good at talking. Into it. But I think Tyson Pedro is a pretty good price. I mean, I would expect him to be a bigger favorite in this one, honestly. The odds makers have kind of like respected Bukauskas somewhat. I mean, he was a favorite against Khalil Roundtree.
Yeah.
Slight underdog to Olashaychek, but I don't know, man. Like, the guy just doesn't impress me at all. And Tyson Pedro is very talented. I would take him inside the distance as well. The guy's good. He's got good leg kicks, good striking, good submissions too. I mean, Bukauskas doesn't do well on the ground either, so that's definitely a path to victory there.